interesting. Most of the apps, or many of the apps, probably 50% in the App Store, are actually considered preschool and therefore, 2 to 8-year-olds. And for everybody that's had a 2-year-old, many aren't potty trained, and some of you have had an 8-year-old and they may be using Facebook. So there's quite a lot of difference between a 2-year-old and an 8-year-old. So when we think about kind of designing games for this audience holistically, one might be doing long division and one might be learning their letters. So we wanted to talk a little bit about designing games that can actually grow with your child, and we have a very kind of exalted panel here today that is really sort of a range of interesting experiences in designing interactive books, learning product, video, etc. for this audience. So we can go ahead to the next slide, I think. So I'll just give a tiny little commercial on me and Fingerprint for those of you that haven't heard about what we do. We created a mobile platform that links families and kids around mobile. We actually have an enterprise service, so we run Samsung's Kids Time subscription service in Southeast Asia. We work with a range of media companies like DreamWorks and Chorus Entertainment. We work with Sylvan Learning Center, and we aggregate best in quality apps. So think about it a little bit like Netflix for mobile learning and play. And we distribute them across our partner networks on a global basis. So we've been at it for almost 3 years. Our lead investors are DreamWorks and Chorus and Reed Elsevier, the publisher. So we have only strategic investment really focused around creating high quality kids play and learning experiences. So my final commercial will be, we're always looking for great developers to work with. We are dealing with people creating great kids content in over 30 countries. And if you're in the business of making great stuff for kids, we'd love to talk with you. So that's enough about me. So I'll turn it over to the team here. And I think Noelle.
Hi everyone. I'm Noelle Millholt. I'm co-founder and COO of Speakaboos. Speakaboos is an early childhood literacy platform focused on English language learning and literacy. We are a subscription service that is unlocked when parents pay $5 a month or $50 a year to get access to a full library of over 175 interactive picture books. They can access that anywhere on our website as well as on tablet devices, and we're also used by teachers in schools here and globally as an English language learning tool. We work with distribution partners like Nancy at Fingerprint, Navi, and Leapfrog. And our chief content officer who leads our content team is a woman named Dr. Alice Wilder. She was the head of research and development for Blue's Clues and co-creator of Super Y. And through her pedagogy, we've seen excellent results and metrics from our content. So kids are spending over 3 hours reading per month in the service. They're reading over 45 books and spending around 20 minutes per session. So we've done a really great job of creating engaging content for kids. We license our content from publisher partners and content owners like Kid Entertainment, Abrams, DK, among many others. Those are a few facts about the business, but the real heart of Speakaboos comes from kids. And so we design all of our stories with kids in mind, and we test all of our content with kids. And I just want to show a quick clip from one of our kid testing sessions that really illustrates how we combine storytelling, technology, and interactivity to get kids engaged in reading and reading more.
One night, while the pigs were sleeping, the old ceiling started to crack and boom! Peter's hammock fell on Paul's hammock, and Paul's hammock fell on Penelope's hammock, and all the little pigs fell down on the floor.
Again. Again. We were number one. Again. Do it again.
Do you like that story or no?
Yeah.
That's the reaction we try and get each and every time.
Oh, okay. Hi everyone, I'm Yuval Rector. I'm in charge of the business development and partnerships at Babyfirst. A bit about Babyfirst. Babyfirst started as a TV channel for babies and moms about 10 years ago with a global distribution of about 80 million households, with 40 of them in the US, almost 50 hopefully by the Q1 2015. Basically what this translates is that every third mom in the US with a child under 3 years old watches our channel 94 minutes a day, with a rating of 94 minutes a day, which is more than Nick Jr., Disney Jr., The Hulk, and what we have done as the world changed, and so did we. As the world went to mobile, we started putting some apps out there. We weren't a game studio, we just try to see what works and what doesn't. And then what we've seen with the TV side was very interesting. We started promoting and recommending to our viewers, to our trusted and loyal viewers, about our apps, and we were very happy with the result. We were able to get our apps to the top 2 in kids under 5 in the App Store just 3 weeks ago with Playful by Babyfirst, and then other developers started approaching us and saying, hey, why don't we promote our apps on your TV and start cross-promoting between one app to the other one. So we started seeing us as a recommendation network, and this is kind of what you're seeing right now is we're building this ecosystem of recommending to the parent which app to download next, and solving some of the discovery issues that in the first panel, or second panel actually, we're talking about how fragmented is the market and how hard it is to find the right app for your child. So this is just a bit about what we're doing today.
Hi, I'm Abby Jenkins. I oversee digital content development for PBS Kids. And PBS is a national nonprofit organization dedicated to educating the American public and raising kids as citizens, not consumers. And you can see some of our great shows represented there: Sesame Street, Curious George, Peck Plus Cat, Daniel Tiger, and our new math series that's going to launch in November, Odd Squad. So we've been thinking a lot about math lately. And we are in over 80% of America's households on the air. And we also do a lot of game development, app development. And our core audience is kids ages 2 to 8 years old. And within that sort of broad age group, we look at preschool and early elementary. So depending on the series, Daniel Tiger, Sesame Street skews a little young, and some of our other shows skew a little bit older, and there's some a little bit in between. What else can I say? With the way we develop our content, we use the word transmedia, but what we start is with the curriculum framework, and the curriculum framework and the subject matter experts and the educational advisors that are behind the series, like Super Y, for example, that's sort of the foundation for the show, and that serves as the foundation for the game experience. You're getting the same curriculum goals, similar storylines and characters across platforms, and we take a sort of watch, play, and do approach. So you're watching a story on air, you're getting a game experiences that reinforces those learning goals and storylines and extends it. And then we also think a lot about parents and the household as a whole. So then there's a activity to do away from the screen that extends the learning. So parents are a big part of who we think about, especially when we're talking about a very young audience. And we offer a lot of materials and support for parents.
Hey everyone, I'm Teri Rousseau, and I'm President of Educational Services at Reading Rainbow. You may know Reading Rainbow as the television show that was loved for many years on PBS. And in fact, the episodes, 152 episodes, are still streamed into the classrooms today. But really the brand was reimagined a couple years ago, about 2012, when LeVar Burton and his business partner Mark Wolf got the global rights to the brand and brought it back to bring reading to today's generation of kids. And they decided to do that in a very different way. Rather than do it on television, as I had done so in the past, they were excited about tablets and other interactive devices. But initially it's been tablets. So we brought it back as a library service, and it's a curated library of, right now, 500 books and about 100 video field trips with new content added every week. And the idea is it's a subscription service, but still very much true to its roots, which is to get kids excited about reading. And what's been fascinating to see is that, over 30 years ago, when Reading Rainbow was first launched on PBS, that was groundbreaking television in the sense of getting kids excited about books through TV. And I think we've had a chance to be innovative in another way for today's generation to get kids excited about reading with the mobile device. And more than even just bringing books to the service, we're also taking them on fascinating journeys with video field trips to connect the books to the real world. And so then the idea has just evolved from there, and we're really excited to continue the mission. We had a Kickstarter campaign this past summer, and that just was beyond our wildest dreams. So Reading Rainbow is coming to even more platforms and more markets, still with the same mission of encouraging kids to read.
Great.
Hi everyone, I'm Azi or Azadeh Jamalian, one of the co-founders and Chief Learning Officer at Tigli. I also am adjunct assistant professor at Teachers College, Columbia. So at Tigli, we are on a mission to help kids to feel what they learn. And by that, we both mean like literally feeling the concepts by designing toys that will basically represent the ideas in a concrete way that they could touch and feel and learn. And also in a metaphoric way, that we want them to actually get engaged in deep thinking processes as they get introduced to new concepts instead of just consuming information and being told what to do and being told a certain facts to get memorized. And to do that, we're designing learning toys, basic toys. I could show you a couple of them. So this is our new toy that we're gonna launch in a couple of weeks in Apple stores, November 11th. It's a set of counting blocks that basically inspired by prison rods, counting blocks that you can see in every classroom. And we thought of them to redesign them to be interactive with apps on the iPad. So now kids could play with their 2 and 1, put them together, and it would be 3. But they could also play with different apps on, that comes with the toy free, and they get introduced to symbols and to numbers and get different feedbacks and scaffolds that the traditional blocks wouldn't be able to provide to children.
Okay. Great. So, Abby, why don't we start with you? Can you talk a little bit about how you approach balancing learning and fun, and then sort of how do you decide around what learning mechanic goes with what gameplay mechanic?
Sure. You know, at the core of what we do, it's about great characters and great storytelling, and you know, really thinking about that larger experience, because we want kids to enjoy what they're watching and what they're playing with, and thinking about characters that have broad appeal, like Curious George, and that are also inspiring and are great role models. So I think that speaks to sort of that broad audience, and I should also mention that we look at really the whole child. So we don't focus on any one subject area. That we've done a lot around literacy, a lot around math, and a lot around science and health and nutrition and lots of subject areas. And so I think the characters are one, looking for the broad appeal is appealing for the youngest is, and there's different entry points, right? So we see, you know, broad appeal of Curious George and Wild Kratts, and so for example, a young child can follow that storyline, maybe learn the name of a new animal, but the older child is going to enjoy that storyline as well, but going to dig into a little bit more of the science. So I think you see some of the same things when we're looking at a game or an open-ended kind of play experience as well, that there's multiple entry points. So that's important. And going to what some folks had said earlier, you know, when we're looking at the game mechanic, thinking about, okay, what's that core concept we're trying to teach? And looking at the affordances of the technology, like Vicki said earlier, and thinking about how to leverage those to teach that core concept. And then we do a lot of testing, just prototype testing, and also the learning impact testing as well. And making sure early on when we're prototyping that we're hitting the mark. And if we don't, then we start over. So we're not getting too far down the road. So yeah, just carefully thinking through what that mechanic is. So one example is there's a game about orangutan. How does an orangutan go through the rainforest? So we use a tilt mechanic that allows the kid to really sort of connect and sort of be a part of that creature power experience. So if they're doing a spatial reasoning or shapes, that we're kind of thinking through how the child can sort of turn a shape in three-dimensional space, and so really thinking through all those decision points to find the right fit.
Right. Babyfirst probably caters to the youngest of of all audiences. How do you guys think about game design and what is and isn't appropriate for the littlest ones?
So we have around 30 apps. We focus mainly on videos, ebooks, connect the dots, scratch and sketch, you know, all the fun stuff. We focus more on the fun part. We just want to make sure the kids are having fun, but at the same time learning some of the skills and some of the things that are needed for kind of the next games that everyone here are gonna start developing in the day two, right? The things that we're seeing is that because we're also starting to aggregate a lot of other apps with other developers from that age range, as I said, and we're recommending on those, and so you see each developer is looking at it at a different aspect. Some of them are actually looking at certain skill and saying, okay, why don't we just try to develop that certain skill? And some of them are going for the more fun aspect. And Babyfirst, we prefer to have the child enjoying in that 0 to 2, 3 sweet spot. So that's what we're doing.
Great. So Noelle, I'd like to talk a little bit about how do you test for the learning efficacy, and then the other side, how you test for the fun factor.
Sure. Well, for us, our learning has to be fun. We view those concepts as one and the same. So as far as our testing is concerned, in the video you saw, we test at 2 phases in the formative development phase of the story. So first, the story manuscript. So the idea is that if a manuscript, when we read it to a child, is not engaging in and of itself, there's no amount of interactivity that's going to make it great. So it has to be engaging for children. And then once we do an interactive build of that story, we test it with kids again. Again, we have them click on every interaction, make sure it's fundamentally comprehensible, and it's fun, and that they want to go back and play that over and over again. We have not conducted efficacy testing. That's something we'll be doing in the very near future, but we have seen great results, as I mentioned, just through our engagement metrics. And we also see a lot of anecdotally offline learning. So in one of our last kid testing sessions, a kid was reading a story about bugs on Speakaboos. And Alice was just so happy and thrilled to see that after he'd finished it, he went to the bookshelf in the school library and took out a book from the shelf about bugs.
Awesome.
So really getting kids to read both online and offline.
Inspiring a love of learning.
Yes.
So Teri, I think everybody would like to understand more about how you're thinking about the school market with Reading Rainbow, and whether the product actually will change for the school market versus your very successful consumer product.
Right, great question, great question. Well, it's been interesting because we never designed Reading Rainbow for the classroom, but our brand has a big history in the classroom with the classic episodes being streamed in. And what we found is teachers were already just naturally finding and using the app. So they started to reach out to us, and they were sending us video field trips from kids going off and producing their own. Kids were doing their own video book reviews. So we started tapping into teachers about how were they using it. And they're using it just as literature circles. They're using it in all the ways that we hope, which is taking these books and using them as starting points to dive deeper into certain themes and topics that are in the curriculum. So as we go into classrooms, the basic product is going to stay the same. It will continue to be this quality library of literature. And then on top of that, we're going to add some lesson plans and some student activities. And we will be mindful of Common Core in the sense of Common Core being about collaboration, Common Core being about critical thinking and analyzing text. But we have no intention of moving away from our roots, of which is truly about encouraging reading time, because we know that reading time and frequency of reading helps build better readers. But we're not going to get into the skill-based process of reading. We'll let other people do that. So in terms of the classroom, it will have reports to view usage. It will have recommendations based on the literature that the kids are reading and what could be next. And then it will just be this open collaborative place where teachers can share lessons, access curriculum, and continue to foster reading time.
Awesome. So Ozzy, I have to say I'm a total fan of what you guys are doing. I think that's my toy company heritage coming out. I'm interested in how you think about product design as it relates not just to the child but also to the parent, and how important that play experience is as it relates to the mom or the dad with the child. And then the second side of that is, what do you think about what's necessary in terms of feedback to the parent? How important is it that your product reports back to the parent about how the child's using it?
Sure. So we do a lot of testing, and because our target audience are young kids, usually it's with the parents or with the teacher. And we make sure to do, and for that reason, we make sure to do testing in different contexts, at home, at schools, and also we're doing an efficacy test with Play Collective, actually, which will be with parents coming to the lab. We'll ask them, like survey with parents, and then have the toys 2 weeks at home, and then have a survey at the end. So we want to understand how parents receive the toys and how they basically think about the toys alone, toys play with the apps and also the app alone, and also how kids play with them. Because the product is very new to everyone, to us, to customers, to kids, and to parents, and it's important to understand how different people, basically people who are going to be in our ecosystem and think about the product. In terms of, and for that reason, we also try to give a lot of learning tips to parents. We've tried different ways of doing that. We had this for parent sections in all of our apps, which was not successful. We realized parents don't really go to the for parent section, and if they go, they don't stay that long because it's very text heavy. And now we're trying to put together a lot of videos, animations, and also just like short clips instead of a long text to have them to basically tell them how they should play, like different tips how they can play with the toy, and also how can they take the learning experience from the toy and the app to different contexts, because learning wouldn't be in one context. It wouldn't be meaningful if it can be transferred to different situations. So those are all the things that we'll do. In terms of collecting data and reporting to parents, that's something that we've actually taught a lot about, and that is something that if you do a startup for kids and if you're trying to raise funding from any VC, the first thing they will say, okay, so how do you want to go big in the digital world? And collecting big data is a big is very hot in the VC world. And what it didn't really feel right to us to basically quantify play experience of children and a 2-year-old play with their toys and they're having fun, and we report to the parents your kid is A+ or your kid is failing. It's just there was something not right about it. But we are planning to collect the data, but we're thinking how can we make those data being more meaningful to parents, and we're thinking to use them as providing more meaningful tips to them. So instead of like general tips, have a circle in your hand and talk about that this doesn't have any size or circle or points, maybe their child already knows about it. So let's have a learning tip that is related to their kid, instead of saying the child is failing.
I think I would like to add here, because what we're trying to do is something very similar. We saw that the parent button has a conversion of close to none. And then we said, okay, how do we actually bring all that information that we know? Because we've seen so many apps and the performance and so many apps on this high level approach. And then we said, okay, why don't we start serving recommendations for the next app you should actually use? So with the restrictions of COPA, of course, we're looking at this more about like a general, how does the market work? So if all the kids love a certain app that has a great coloring or great ABC, we would start inbound marketing and saying, hey, this is the app you should look at. So it's more about serving you the content versus going and needing to go to a parent zone and then another click and another click and another click. In the end, you just forgot where were you, and the kid is already in another room. So
Interesting. So in the toy business, you walk down the ELA aisle and you see product that's appropriate for 0 to 2-year-olds, and then 3 to 5-year-olds, and then 6+, etc. The App Store doesn't really let you slice and dice the age range quite like that. And so going back to our topic around designing with games that grow up for kids, what does that do to you as a game developer or a content creator in terms of figuring out how do we make the right product that's also going to fit into the right App Store criteria and make a parent pay attention to what it is?
I think, for what Abby said earlier, I think it's important for us. We focus on preschool. We don't segment our groups. It's 2 to 6, and because of that, we have to make sure that we focus on building multiple layers of engagement for 2s, for 4s, and for 6s within our product. And when you think about a Pixar movie as an example, it's a similar model. You know, a 4-year-old is engaged, a 7-year-old is engaged, an adult, a parent is engaged. So I think it's really important to do that and not alienate a certain group of kids. So as an example, we have an interactive version of Humpty Dumpty, where kids can actually put him back together once he's fallen apart, which is the great part about interactivity. And obviously that's traditionally a very young title, it's a nursery rhyme, but we actually saw 4s and 5-year-olds really engaged in that story and coming back for more because of that one piece of interaction. So it's important to, of course, test with the different age groups, but I think create scaffolds for each of them.
I think it's really challenging, particularly in the learning area, because you're dealing with so many components. You have the look and feel. A 2 to 4-year-old has a certain aesthetic that a 6 to 8-year-old has another aesthetic. And then you have the learning components, and no matter how well your game is designed, they really are going to stay within a bandwidth. And a 2 to 4-year-old is learning certain skill sets that a 3 to 6-year-old is not learning. And then on top of that, there's the game mechanics and the usability and the motor skills. So it's really challenging. I mean, in terms of Reading Rainbow, because we're a curated library, we're able to balance that because we created a fantastical world that was able to appeal to a relatively broad target. And then the content can be based on a certain series of introductory questions. We can curate that content even tighter based on the child's age, and if they say they're interested in comics or fairy princesses and things like that. But when you get into gaming, I tend to be more of a proponent of you just have to kind of create different games for smaller niche targets, because it's every once in a while you can hit it out of the ballpark with something like an Angry Birds that appeals to a very broad group, but it's tough. I mean, it's really hard to think about it that way.
Well, it's kind of interesting because video games typically will have difficulty levels, difficult to master, so I play the easy level, but in learning there's content levels as well, so I'm curious about whether anybody has taken that approach.
Yeah, even when we were doing games on websites, way back when we were doing Flash games, one approach we took was with self-leveling, so that you don't have these fixed levels, but you play where you can play, and then it will continue at that level. So that's one approach to take from the design or the experience perspective.
We try to have the toy. We usually, like the first toy was 18 months to 4-year-old, and the second one is we say 3 and up. We're basically using both models. But what really we're doing is we do a lot of play testing with different age groups for each of our apps. And sometimes, clearly, if you play with a 10-year-old, we don't have their attention. So we try to find what's the age range that we could have them engaged. And then we try to add different features that will target different age groups. So, for example, in one of our apps, take this down, a 14-year-old could play by just tapping the shapes on screen and different objects would appear on the screen. A 2-year-old get to create their own scene and move these different objects on the screen, and they like to take pictures. And then when they get to 5-year-old, we realize that they started to tell stories about those objects. So each one of them, it's the same platform, but each one of them, they engage with them in different ways. And then we added those different features, and it's okay if a 2-year-old doesn't use the feature that was meant to be for a 5-year-old, but it is there if they want to use it. So in the app, there is like a record button. A 5-year-old record their stories, and they have these animations that they create. A 2-year-old, they just play with it, and they have a fun saying, okay, what can I make with a circle, or what can I make it with a triangle? And it is still a rich play experience that they're not missing.
Interesting. So I think we have a few minutes to take questions from the audience if anybody has any.
This I guess would be a question for you, as well as thinking about the Babyfirst mobile. You both talked about curating content, or your business talks about curating content. Is it your own apps that you're curating, or are you curating apps outside of the ones that you develop for parents?
So we started, as I said, we started a few years ago with our own apps. And then what we did is we promoted on TV and we saw great success. And when we started cross-promoting our own apps, we said, okay, there's something here. Also strong on the TV side. We were able to solve some discovery issues and visibility issues in the App Store, which is getting harder and harder. And then developers started approaching us and saying, hey, how can I be promoted on your TV? And then we went in with a partner of ours, to answer your question, third-party app developers, the Zoo, for example. Some of you might know them, approached us and say, hey, they have great, and then we said, hey, they have great IP. So we even did a TV program with them based on their IP of the app, which gave them, of course, brand recognition and merchandising. We promoted them on TV. So, of course, after you have the show, you get promoted on TV. You can imagine what happens to your downloads, right? So, and that solved them some of the visibility issues. For us, it made sense in order to increase our reach, of course, and be able to, in the curation part, I would go through the saying we only choose third-party app developers that are good enough, which means they have great content, great reviews, great feedbacks from the users that are proven. Not ideas mostly existing apps with a sufficient amount of users. And we know the feedback is actually real. So to answer your questions, yeah, so we started with our apps, but right now we're looking for more and more third-party developers to help each other. Because it's very fragmented out there. It's really hard.
So we take a slightly different approach because we run curated app networks for large enterprise customers. So we work with 100+ app developers. I think we've got, I don't know, 700 or 800 apps, books, and videos within our library. And then we have a PhD curriculum specialist that works for us, and we've created a fairly elaborate evaluation process, and we've mapped every one of our apps to Common Core so that when we go to, and then there's a fun metric as well, and then we actually curate every single library, if you will, for each one of our customer partners so that they're getting the kind of content that they want for their particular library. So we really think very much about this like a beautiful, small collection of content that's right for a particular customer.
Babyfirst is also on Fingerprint.
Yes, we are. Yeah, I mean, look,
So,
everybody is our friend here, which is great. Yes.
Hi, so here we are, digital kids. I'm wondering if any of you have thought of the grandparents, my parents, as digital kids as well. And if you've thought about how the apps and services that you're building might serve the population on the other bookend.
Can I answer that?
Sure.
I mean, I want to just jump in because we actually are working on an initiative like that, and then I'll let these guys answer because we have the same notion that kids and their grown-ups together, and we realized that we could be curating libraries of content for whole families, and so we've been exploring that, and one of our partners in Asia, we're well down the path of actually building something interesting like that.
actually, one of the third-party apps that approached us, that applied to us, is a very cool Skype interactive with parents, which you read stories, and you can actually point where you are in the story. It's not our app. I'm not taking any credit.
So I'm older than most of you. I'm 50, and I'm helping to manage my parents' digital lives. And I'm thinking about grandparents, and the grandparents who don't speak English and who need to learn how to speak English, and those grandparents who are playing with the youngest children as their parents are off working and don't actually have necessarily as much time.
That's
and
great.
I just see all of what's happening in the kids space as this wide open market in the AARP range. The sort of, anybody else in the audience agree with me?
Yeah, I'd like to just point out, Ann over here from Cricket Media, would you mind just talking a little bit about what you guys do?
Sure, so this is the app you were talking about. It's called Storybug, and what we do is we combine two video chat boxes atop a shared reader, so you don't have the awkward grandparent to young child conversation, which if you're familiar with goes like this. How are you? Fine. Nothing. And they're gone. You actually infuse content into the conversation and they can see where each other are pointing. So you can say, Johnny, can you point to the watermelon or whatever it is, and then give them positive feedback when they do. And so, it's very grandparent friendly and helps draw that connection when they're apart.
Thank you. I just think there's a huge opportunity there.
Yeah, I don't want to hijack that, but our nonprofit summer.org is designed around lifelong learning and this idea about cricket and what we heard from the San Francisco libraries. You think about who are the people using the libraries? It's your old retirees, it's your young kids. So how do we create that whole circle of learning, right? And how do you connect them? And you're on the path. You're smiling and nodding. And I think that really that's an amazing next steps is when we think about up to 8 years old, what do you do in middle school? What do you do in high school? We're focused more on university and high school. But clearly, I think learning is a whole circle of experiences.
Super smart. Anybody else?
I was just curious about marketing, and you kind of touched on previously, but I have a specific question for you all. And you said that one of your apps, I think, hit the number 2 in the App Store. And how did you do that? Was that via paid marketing? And just whatever everybody has other kind of marketing budgets are, how big of the part of the budget goes towards marketing?
Okay, so luckily for us, we have a TV network. So we actually didn't spend any marketing budget. We use of our own global distribution, and we use our airtime to promote and also to recommend on the mobile users to cross promote. So it's a combination of the TV and our existing mobile users on the apps. So we were able to recommend them, for example, Playphone, the app that I just mentioned, Playphone. It's a free app, and it's just a fun app that is imitating a phone. Like every parent here probably knows that the child always wants to take the phone and use it as a telephone. So we kind of imitated that, and we said, okay, why don't we have Harry the Bunny calling you and just being fun and engaging. So we didn't use any marketing budget for that one. We just with our own distribution resources, we were able to get it to the top
2. So our growth to date has been completely organic. We wanted to make sure that we were engaging kids first before unlocking our marketing budget, which we'll be doing very soon. With that said, I think it's important to, and this is part of what we're focusing on now going forward, to build tools into the service that allow your users to be your evangelists. So for Speakaboos, that means allowing parents to share with other parents, whether that's giving them some sort of reward for that in a form of a free subscription, and also allowing teachers to be our evangelists as well. We also are building features, as a few people here spoke about, that will allow the school and home connection. So basically, if teachers are using a classroom, making it easy for them to share with parents to use at home as well.
Anybody else?
I have a question your idea, you have your idea coming out. Are there other people doing that with the toys connecting to apps? I mean, it seems like something that a big company like Hasbro or any of those will go, oh, that's cool, we can get that out in the market quicker than the idea.
Well, they actually have done it. So most of the difference between us and what Hasbro and Mattel have done is that they basically said, okay, we have the car, we have the Barbie, and it will be so cool to put it on iPad because iPad will recognize it. So they will they look at it as we have a cool technology in hand, and let's just put it in the market. But we are not really, we never say our technology is cool or anything. What we're trying to do is to look into what are the basic fundamental skills and concepts that kids need to actually interact with real objects for them to be able to learn better, and then does it make sense to add a digital component to it, and only then we'll create a toy that is basically it's there to provide a new learning experience to children. So it's not gimmicky, it's not about the cool tech, it's mostly about the that experience that kids get engaged with, and they it tap into their sense of wonderment, and it introducing them to these new worlds that they wouldn't be introduced by just playing the toys alone or just playing the apps alone. And I think that's what's different. What is different between us and everybody else, that we have the kids in mind, not the technology.
All right, thanks guys.